The city had never felt so silent. Normally, Chicago's streets buzzed with life, the honking of cars on Lakeshore Drive, the chatter of tourists in Millennium Park, and the steady hum of the L trains rattling overhead. But tonight, an eerie stillness gripped the city. At exactly 8 p.m., the mayor's emergency alert had announced a citywide lockdown. No one was to leave their homes. No one was to answer their phones. No explanation was given. The message was simple but chilling. For your safety, remain indoors until further notice. Evelyn Harper stared out of her apartment window on the 15th floor of a high-rise overlooking the Chicago River. The familiar cityscape felt alien, swallowed by thick fog rolling off the water. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. She wasn't a stranger to emergencies. Working as a crime journalist for the Chicago Tribune meant she had seen her share of violence and chaos. But this was different. No reports on TV, no social media updates, just a cold lockdown and silence. The phone rang once, twice, then went dead. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Across the river, a solitary figure darted down an alley near the merchandise mart. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows. The figure stopped, looked around, and then disappeared into a building. Evelyn's instincts screamed to find out more. Grabbing her coat and camera, she quietly slipped out of her apartment, careful to avoid the patrolling police drones overhead. The lockdown seemed to be enforced with robotic precision. But why? She crossed the nearby bridge, the river's murmur drowned by the sudden absence of city noise. The alley was deserted, except for faint footprints on the wet pavement. The building the figure entered was a nondescript warehouse, its faded sign barely visible, Caldwell Shipping. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the smell of dust and rust filled the air. Evelyn's footsteps echoed as she moved deeper into the warehouse. Rows of crates lined the walls. At the far end, a faint glow emanated from a small office. Peering through the cracked door, she saw two men in dark suits bent over a table strewn with blueprints and electronic devices. One of them looked up abruptly. "You shouldn't be here," he hissed, pulling out a pistol. Evelyn froze but kept her hands raised. "I'm just a reporter. What's going on? Why the lockdown?" The man's eyes hardened. "It's not safe to know. Get out." Before she could respond, a sudden explosion rocked the building. The crates shook and splintered. Smoke filled the room. Chaos erupted. Evelyn ducked behind a stack of crates as another figure burst through a side door, a woman in tactical gear with a badge pinned to her jacket. "Evelyn, follow me if you want to live." The woman pulled her through a maze of corridors, narrowly avoiding falling debris. Once outside, Evelyn gasped. The city looked apocalyptic. Fires burned in the distance. Sirens wailed faintly beneath the fog. The woman finally stopped near a police barricade. "I'm Agent Collins, FBI. There's a threat. A cyber attack aimed at crippling the city's infrastructure. They plan to hack into the power grid, shut down hospitals, emergency services, everything. That's why the lockdown. To keep people safe while we stop them." "But who? Why target Chicago?" Evelyn asked, breathless. Collins shook her head. "We're still piecing it together, but whoever they are, they're organized and ruthless." The explosion was meant to destroy evidence. Evelyn's mind raced. Her journalist instincts kicked in. "Can I help? I have sources, access. Maybe I can find out more." Collins hesitated, then nodded. "We need all the help we can get." Together, they headed towards a command center set up in an underground bunker. Screens flickered with maps and data feeds. Analysts worked frantically to trace the cyber attacks. As hours passed, the picture grew clearer. A shadowy group calling themselves the Black Circuit had infiltrated Chicago's networks. Their goal was chaos, but for what reason remained unknown. Evelyn stayed late, documenting everything. She knew the city depended on this story being told, not just for headlines, but to warn and prepare. At dawn, the lockdown lifted. The city began to stir cautiously, a collective breath held in relief. But Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the Black Circuit wasn't done. Chicago's calm had been shattered. Beneath the surface, a new mystery awaited, one she was determined to unravel. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.